Hey everybody, Max here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the G.I. Joe Classified series War Crime, the G.I. Joe Classified series Geneva Convention, the G.I. Joe Classified series Protocol 3, the G.I. Joe Classified series Brush Fire, the G.I. Joe Classified series Barbecue, hey, the G.I. Joe Classified series Napalm in the Morning, the G.I. Joe Classified series Propane and Propane Accessories, the G.I. Joe Classified series Scorch Mark, and the G.I. Joe Classified series Assassin. Of course, guys, we're talking about Blowtorch. A little on the nose, but I will forgive it because it is one of my all-time favorite G.I. Joe figures, and glad to finally have him in the line. When I got into Classified, Blowtorch was right at the top of figures that I wanted to see. Now, all the references to being a war criminal is that the fact that blowtorches are not allowed in combat. They can be used to clear brush, but they cannot be dedicated weapons. So the very fact that there's a blowtorch trooper on G.I. Joe, yeah, that's in violation of Protocol 3 of the Geneva Convention. So, but I didn't know that as a child, and I got to say that I torched a lot of Cobras when I was a kid. So, you know, hey, nothing like unrestrained mayhem for a good cause, right? So anyway, we'll talk about the figure here in a second. Here's the package and pretty cool artwork. And then we have this diorama shot on the back. We've got the bridge layer. Everybody's been wowing about that. And then we have a bunch of what looks like Cobra Valkyries in the background on the other side. And this guy, I guess, can't be shown torching these people because that would be a war crime. So no idea what he's doing with his buddy here coming under fire from all of these Cobra women. So and looks like the Amazon rainforest. I'm sure that people in South America are going to be very happy about that. So anyway, interesting little picture there. And oh, let's see. I don't really talk about this much. He's 154 on the line, so it's cool that we're finally up to like 154 figures. That's crazy. So let's talk about one of my all-time favorite figures. He's got a lot going on. He's very cool looking. There's a couple of design elements that I'm scratching my head over, and I will talk about those. But as I typically do, I'm going to break down the figure. So he comes with what you see here, in addition to, so he has this big fireball effect. Then he comes with a fire streaming effect, and fairly flexible, not too bad, and not too heavy. It kind of dips down a little bit, but blowtorches are not very, they're not long range weapons. They're not, I guess they're not technically classified as a weapon, but anyway, they're not long range, right? And then you have the kind of like the just a little flame at the beginning, at the end there. So and they port in without any problem. This little effect comes attached in the box, so he looks like that. So that's cool. So let's break him down. Let's talk about the backpack. Now, it's kind of interesting. I mean, this is obviously, I think this is Torch's backpack because there's sections. There's a section here that looks like, something should be attached. So they just reuse the canister. I'm guessing this is like oxygen tank and then propane tanks. And I remember this guy being like Scottish in the cartoon or something. So I remember a scene where he's screaming about not being able to get propane for his flamethrower. So I mean, there's pretty good detail on this guy. I'm not going to complain about that. And with a guy that has to have a backpack, it fits in fairly well. Although I think I might still add a little like handy tack or something just to kind of get it to secure a little better. It kind of wobbles a little bit, so which is unfortunate. Then there's a nice flexible tube, which I wish was a little more flexible. It comes in the package straight, so I've already warped it a bit, so it's going to hold its shape once you kind of get it where you want it, and it'll eventually stay there. But you might want to heat it up and then form it where you want. So the blowtorch itself, this is kind of one of the things that I'm kind of scratching my head over. It looks great, don't get me wrong. This is an interesting design. It's a little thin and a little warped here around the handle, the stock, I mean. And it's one of those things where the original figure didn't have this big canister here, which I think this is actually what a traditional kind of flamethrower looks like. It doesn't have this, I don't think it uses or has an attachment to a backpack. I mean, who wants to run around with flammable liquid on their back, right, in real life? So this would be pretty much all you would need. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it looks great. I wish there was a little more paint detail here and there, but we got silver, like little blast shield or something, and the silver at the muzzle, and that looks fine. It's kind of a green, just kind of an OD green. I probably would have preferred black, but I'm not really complaining. The color itself, it shows off the details. I see the details more, and it does have it. It looks like a solid weapon. I may need to give it a bath and straighten it out a little bit, but I'm wondering why did they add this big canister? Because the original, the tube fed right here, right? Backpack to here. So why go to all the trouble of designing this? And if you're going to design this, why also have a backpack, right? Which is kind of an odd, like they put the tube here, which I'm wondering, like, how would the propane, I mean, that's a long way for it to travel, and what would the mechanism be and everything? So to have flammable fluid, anyway, flowing right near your wrist instead of around. And granted, okay, he's got a flame retardant suit to protect him from all that. So anyway, that's the flamethrower. I guess you could just, if you wanted to, you could take a little hobby knife and cut this off if you wanted, or I don't know, maybe whittle it down and make a little port. Make a little knot, a little nubbin. I can't think right there. Little attachment point underneath here. So that's something you might want to try if you're not happy with this particular configuration. But it's all right. It is what it is. The helmet, I do quite like the helmet. It's more of a flexible plastic, kind of this mustard yellow, kind of a Dijon mustard, and with black paint all the way around. I like the fact that they, sculpted in lights for, I guess, I don't know why you'd need it, but I guess if he's operating at night, give him a little more illumination. And, just it's a very unique helmet, and I'm glad that they kind of classified it. Some good detail on the earpieces and all that. So yeah, it turned out okay. And like I said, it's a little more flexible, which is great because you would need that because it has to go on over both the head and his goggles and respirator mask, and which also turned out very well. And which this is, because it's clear plastic, the whole thing is clear plastic, with the exception of perhaps this flexible tube here. So I foresee, and this has happened in a couple of places, there's been some black paint that has kind of flaked off a little bit. You can kind of see it right there. So because it's clear plastic, I'm assuming that's why the black paint is not adhering as well. And so we will just have to wait and see, but it's black paint and then the yellow paint, and the detail is very good. And hey, I'm kind of glad that they went with the clear plastic so you can see his eyes. And they don't often do that. They could have just made this thing black plastic and painted the visor silver. So I like the fact that the tube is flexible. It does not detach, although if you really were dedicated and really wanted to, you could probably do that. And it's fairly flexible too, so it ports into his little, I guess, control box right there. And this actually does port off too, so that's cool. So you have a little more. You can move that around if you wanted to. I don't know why you would. but that's where it ported into the original figure. So there's a lot of attention to detail trying to recreate what the OG figure looked like, and now I'm having trouble getting this thing back in. I didn't have any trouble before. There we go. So, okay, let's get him into a neutral pose here. Lots of detail to this guy. He feels hefty. Like, I mean, there's a lot of plastic in this guy. And we got pretty much all new tooling, too. I mean, I don't think there's anything reused except maybe these hands. I mean, the trigger finger hands are just ubiquitous when it comes to this line. But head sculpt looked really good. It honestly kind of reminds me of the cartoon guy, the cartoon character, which I don't think he was used much, but I remember seeing him a couple of times. And you can tell that the paint from the respirator masks is starting to rub. Hopefully you can see that. Let's get a little more light on the subject. So, but the sculpt is good. Paint on the hair is pretty good. And yeah, I think it turned out very well. This is a very good head sculpt. Now, this is where this is one of my gripes with regards to this new version is the open collar. Now, that worked fine for the OG figure because the head had limited range of motion anyway, right? But this is a modern 6-inch. This is a new scale. This is a new way of doing figures. It's, you know, more human, right? So we want to get as much range of motion as we can, and without the helmet and the mask on, he you know, he looks down a decent amount. He doesn't, you know, those ball joints just aren't great for head articulation, in my opinion. And let me change the angle of my camera here. Bear with me. Yeah, there we go. That's better. And so with all of this on him turning, he can't really turn his head very well. And he can't, obviously, his chin's hitting the collar. So I get they were probably designing it to make it look like the original as close as they could because he had an open collar. But it's just not practical when you think about it. Why would you have open skin when you have a flame retardant suit, right? So this thing should probably be zipped up. It should be, his neck piece should be yellow. You know, you can see kind of an undershirt there. You know, this collar shouldn't be there. You know, we should have, you know, it should be, you know, flat, zipped up, what have you. And so we can have full range of motion in the neck, and the head or the helmet and the mask do not hinder in any way. So I can foresee this being potentially cut away in the future. Either myself or maybe an intrepid customizer will take care of that, and I think yeah, it wouldn't look too bad. You just have to be careful with it, but it's a little, it's not, it's a little flexible. It's pretty hard, and it's kind of middle of the road. I mean, it holds its shape, but you can move it. So I can foresee somebody cutting that off. So that's one little gripe that I have about it. Another thing is these shoulder pauldrons, just the vest, you know, this flame retardant vest extends out over the shoulder, which limits range of motion. And I don't know, I mean, it can't, I mean, yes, you can go off to the side and it'll go around, and it's soft and it's flexible, but why is it there? I just don't get it. It seems unnecessary. It seems to, it has the potential to hinder the range of motion. Now, the butterfly joint is a little limited. It's kind of on the low end in terms of, it's definitely going to need the arms removed and the pegs, that little safety peg, snipped so you can get a little more range of motion, because crossbody is kind of hard. You can't really, you know, kind of hold him. You know, you can have it in one hand, but you can't quite get the other arm across to hold it in some place, you know, just make it look realistic. So I foresee that little modification happening, and maybe even cutting away this plastic right along that edge there. and just being done with it. So I guess I'm just scratching my head because the original figure didn't have this. So I don't know why they bothered. It's not necessary, potentially limits range of motion. And so there's that. But in terms of the sculpting and the detail and all of these little silver, I think Lenny said these were like temperature control valves. He says that's how he envisions it. It's not there's no real world system like that, but of course there's some science fiction elements to G.I. Joe, and so hey, we can make it what we want, and it looks cool. It turned out really well, and I like all the seams and the detail, and like I said, he's hefty. So you saw he can get decent T-pose and his arm will go around. He's got the bicep swivel, and that's about the range of motion for the double jointed elbows because he's got kind of has some big arms. Well, maybe I can get a little more. Yeah. So he can go, his arms go back that far. And he has, let's see, he has a vertical hinge on the right hand and horizontal on the left, which is great. We're finally getting kind of the right articulation for our trigger finger hands. Now, I really would like Hasbro to start giving us different hands, like C cupping hands, something like that. That Cobra Commander claw hand is not cutting it for me. But arms are good. Good range of motion, tight tolerances, no loose joints or anything like that. And they seem to, the waist, this is one of the biggest kind of annoyances, or just is the figures are supposed to be able to twist at the waist, and they don't always do that effectively. Now, with this new wave, they seem to be doing it fairly well, and it's not stretching anything, it's not making it wobble or anything like that. Now, obviously, there's so much plastic in this vest here that you're not going to get any forward bend out of this guy, but you can tell there is an ab crunch, so he can go back that far, and well, you can get a little forward, about that much, and so yeah, so there's that. So those are the arms, the waist. You get his little environmental thing out of his oxygen regulator out of the way. And this brings me to another design choice that I don't quite understand why they did this. And it makes me think that whoever designed this also designed the Saw Viper, because this figure, like the Saw Viper, has integrated parts into the diaper, the waist piece here. So on most G.I. Joe Classified figures, we have belts and things like that that go around the waist piece. These are integrated into the waist piece, and I don't like it, but mainly because there's no option to remove the belt. Now you have this holster for this pistol, this little kind of 1911 kind of thing, and that fits in there, and it fits in there well, but it hinders range of motion. With the gun in there, it's going to warp the gun if you want to have him kick out or anything like that, and and it stretches the plastic, right? And it just seems like I'm trying to figure out the logic behind it, and if it's well, let's integrate this into the design so we only have one piece, and that way we don't have to make another separate accessory for the figure. Maybe, but they still do it for most figures anyway. So why is it for certain figures? This is just seems like overdone, perhaps, trying to kill two birds with one stone. And so yeah, and it just makes me think that this is a specific designer. Like this was somebody who's like, okay, Blowtorch is your figure, Saw Viper is your figure, maybe Storm Shadow version 2. He's got all that extra stuff on it, and this is just kind of the design elements. And they said, yeah, okay, that's fine. But Hasbro, don't let this person do this again. It's just not. I just don't like it. I don't think it's a good idea because, well, for the reasons I outlined. If it tears or rips, what are you going to do? How do you get rid of it? You'll have to cut the holster off. So yeah, it doesn't. It seems like these belts should have been a separate piece. So that's just my opinion. So it has drop-down hips, but pretty stiff ones. So on the left side, he can't quite, the splits, so range of motion there, it's a little limited, of course, because of the holster and these thick old thighs and the armor plates and all of that. So trying to get the, there you go. He can barely do 90 degrees with the drop-down hips. Now, granted, I'm having some trouble. So there's that, but there's a white thigh swivel underneath, hidden behind the top of the this particular plate here. So that's fine. And it looks good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a good looking figure. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. Don't quite understand why they did the black. It's if it's just a okay, we're to differentiate between the eventual retro card where it'll be a more traditional like bright yellow and brighter red, and then they'll make the the knee pads yellow and the feet yellow. Is that what we're thinking? It still looks cool. I mean, it's new parts, new tooling, all that. That's great. Like I said, this is definitely in my top 10 favorite figures of all time. And I was a bit of a pyro when I was a child and set fire to the backyard. Once, yep, nearly blew up a barn. Yep, it was good times, good times. My dad wore me out when he caught me. So, so fire bad. But so yeah, you got good range of motion there on the legs, despite being as big as they are, and good design all around. And this also brings me to my my final gripe, which is I didn't think there would be a boot swivel, but I figured there would be an ankle swivel, and there's not. There's more than enough space and material right here to have an ankle swivel. So like the Saw Viper, which also had enough material to have an ankle swivel, like say Leatherneck or Airborne, right? It's like thinner legs than these. Why did they not give us an ankle swivel for this figure? So again, which also kind of makes me think that whoever designed this also designed the Saw Viper, because that guy did not have ankle swivel when he could have easily had it. So anyway, that is Blowtorch. I still like this figure quite a lot, even though there are some design choices I'm scratching my head over. But he looks really cool, and very happy to have him in the line. And won't be committing any war crimes with this guy, even though I did quite a bit when I was a child. But hey, I didn't know any better. But I know better now. Okay, so I only use fire when I absolutely have to. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna give this guy a warp factor of I'll give him 8.5. And like I said, the design choices just kind of got a question mark over my head. But he's a very solid figure. I like him. I think, hey, I think you will too. Is this one of your favorites? Have you picked him up? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Thanks for liking. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for subscribing if you haven't already. Trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year. Yeah, all right. I think that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Continue to be awesome, and I'll talk to you guys next time.